What if I told you the Soviet Union hid some of the darkest secrets in modern history? I mean, we all know that the Soviet Union wasn't exactly known for its commitment to democracy and free speech, but some of the things that happened under Stalin and his successors are truly shocking. In this video, we'll uncover 5 shocking Soviet crimes in just 1 minute each. From mass executions to man-made famines, the Soviet Union had a way of making history that was both tragic and terrifying. So if you're ready to delve into some of the darkest chapters of the 20th century, buckle up. This is heavy stuff, so if you need to take a break at any point to pet your dog or stare contemplatively out a window, I totally get it. Imagine living in a society where you could be arrested and executed simply for disagreeing with the government. That was the reality in the Soviet Union during the Great Purge, which lasted from 1936 to 1938. Under Stalin's orders, anyone perceived as a threat, from political rivals to artists and writers, was eliminated. We're talking about over 700,000 people executed in just 2 years. Can you imagine the fear? Thousands more were sent to labor camps called gulags, where they faced unimaginable conditions. Many never returned. The Great Purge was a period of intense paranoia and state-sponsored terror, leaving a permanent scar on Soviet society. It's hard to comprehend the scale of the suffering, but it's important to remember that each of those 700,000 people had a life, a family, a story. The Great Purge wasn't just a statistic, it was a human tragedy of epic proportions. The Holodomor, a man-made famine, devastated Soviet Ukraine from 1932 to 1933. Imagine a government intentionally starving its own people. Stalin's forced collectivization led to crop failures and grain confiscations. Millions starved to death, estimates range from 4 to 7 million. The Soviet government denied the famine and blocked aid. Chapter 3. The Kon Massacre, a crime covered up. The year is 1940. World War II is raging, and the Soviet Union under Stalin is allied with Nazi Germany. But behind the scenes, a horrific crime is taking place. In a forest near the village of Katyn in Poland, the Soviet secret police systematically executed over 22,000 Polish prisoners of war. These weren't just soldiers, they were intellectuals, doctors, lawyers, the very people who could have helped rebuild Poland after the war. The victims were shot in the back of the head and buried in mass graves. For decades, the Soviet Union denied any involvement, blaming the Nazis for the massacre. It wasn't until 1990 that the Soviet government finally admitted to the crime, acknowledging the truth about what happened at Katyn. The Kon Massacre is a chilling example of how totalitarian regimes use violence and deception to silence their opponents. Chapter 4. The Gulag Archipelago prisons across a nation. The Soviet Gulag system was a vast network of forced labor camps. Millions were sent to these camps, accused of crimes both real and imagined. Imagine being sent to a frozen wasteland in Siberia, forced to work with little food or clothing. That was the reality for millions of Gulag prisoners. Chapter 5. Chernobyl, when lies trumpeted truth. April 26, 1986. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine explodes, releasing a massive cloud of radioactive material into the atmosphere. It was one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. But instead of alerting the world and evacuating the nearby population, the Soviet government chose to cover up the disaster. They were more concerned with their image than with the safety of their own people. Think about that for a second. A government choosing to prioritize its reputation over the lives of its citizens. As a result of the cover-up, people were exposed to dangerous levels of radiation, leading to widespread health problems and countless deaths. The Chernobyl disaster and its aftermath exposed the Soviet system's flaws for the world to see: secrecy, lies, and a disregard for human life. Outro: learning from the past. These 5 crimes, as horrific as they are, give us just a glimpse into the darker side of the Soviet Union, a system built on fear and control, where human life was often seen as expendable. It's easy to judge the past, to think that we would never let something like this happen again. But history has a way of repeating itself if we don't learn from its mistakes. So let's keep these stories alive, not to dwell on the darkness, but to remind ourselves of the importance of truth, justice, and the value of every human life. If you found this video informative, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more historical deep dives. And let me know in the comments which of these crimes shocked you the most.